So, all right. So Columbus, Ohio is where you are currently located. I got a question for you. How did your love of the Tar Heels start?
I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio,
Okay.
and I was a late bloomer in terms of sports. My mom, I went to a dare. I'm talking about, like one of those dare to
Oh
keep
yeah,
kids
the,
off drugs.
the whole Reagan initiative thing back. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So this is back in the 80s. And I went to one of those as a junior in high school. We had a break in our seminar or whatever it was. And I was bored. And so I walked over. It was in a rec center. And so I walked over. There's this basketball sitting on the floor. I picked it up. I shot like 3 shots. And I was like, I think I want to do basketball. And so I came home and I told my mom, I'm a junior in high school at this point and overweight and all this other stuff. But I told my mom, I said, I think I want to get involved in basketball. And she's like, all right, we'll watch it on TV because we just weren't an athletic family. And
Yeah.
so I started watching on TV, and we didn't have cable. We couldn't afford it. And so every Saturday on CBS, there
Yeah.
was this Carolina Blue team and this little coach named Dean Smith and a guy named J.R. Reed. And I fell in love with Carolina. So a lot of people think it's because of Michael Jordan. It is not. I am not that guy. I actually
Yeah.
fell in love with Carolina because of Dean Smith and J.R. Reed, and I've been a fan ever since.
Okay. I think I'm right behind you in terms of my earliest memory because mine was like the Scott Williams. It was Kevin Madden. It was
Right?
like the year after Reed left when they were not good at all. 90 team.
Yeah.
It's one of Dean
Yeah.
Smith's worst shit. But that was the year I fell in love with him. And then
Yeah.
yeah, after that was Montross and all those guys, and it got picking back up. But
I
okay.
tell
So
you every lineup since, right? Yep.
exactly. Yeah. So you grew up in Cleveland. And what were, before your dreams started your junior year of being a lottery pick in the NBA draft, what were some of your aspirations you had as a young kid?
Well, I mean, I didn't have a lot. I wasn't a very, I'm still not, I'm not a very bright person. So I didn't have dreams. I guess I ended up going to Mount Vernon Nazarene University, following my sister, because she got to go there and
Hmm.
my ACT scores weren't great. I got a 13 on my ACT. They accepted me. And so I went. Honestly, I think I worked the summer before that for Carter Lumber in the lumber yard, and honestly, I enjoyed it. I love doing it, and so even after my freshman year, I was like, I'm going to go home. I'm going to work at Carter Lumber and just do that the rest of my life. So I didn't have a lot of dreams and aspirations. Life just kind of, and I think my faith just kind of directed me where I am today.
Did you always grow up a religious person, or is that something that you found later in life?
I grew up in a house of faith.
Hmm.
We were there every time the doors were open,
Yep.
but it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is it wasn't my own, and I needed to find my own faith, and had to do that by failing, screwing up, doing a lot of things I shouldn't have done. Um, I had to get to a place where it was my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, before we get deeper, I always find some really good stuff here to kind of unpack. I want to throw some random questions at you. First
Okay.
one, best board game ever.
Well, I'm colorblind, so
Okay.
I can only it that limits the amount of games I can
So
play.
it's
My
like
kids have
Connect
all these
Four or
color.
something.
So sorry, the game there or Candyland.
Okay.
Candyland is a freaking nightmare for me. Do you know? Like seriously, I don't know if you, as a colorblind person,
Yeah.
Candyland is a nightmare for me. Sorry, some of those. So it does limit. Gosh, currently, are we talking currently?
Ever played?
Ever played? I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I don't know if it's politically correct. I like the game Mexican Train. It's a lot of fun.
Okay. I was gonna say dominoes. I was gonna say dominoes.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
okay.
so Domino's with Mexican, yeah, yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
even know if that's politically correct anymore. I'm surprised they haven't changed the name of it, but I like the game Mexican Trade. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I still think it's a term. I think we'll check. If not,
Okay,
we'll scratch it off the episode.
for
Uh
now,
what's the guilty pleasure you have?
chicken sandwiches.
Chicken's best chicken sandwich. What is that?
Well, again, so I have lists, but
Okay.
if we're talking fast food, the KFC chicken sandwich. Look, it's KFC and Popeyes are like one and two. And I know people are going to say, well, what about Chick-fil-A? Chick-fil-A is in another category. Like it is.
It
When
is.
you're talking crispy chicken sandwich, you got KFC is so underrated. And then Popeyes is right there. And then I would say, look, Wendy's is back in the game. I don't know
Oh
if you
yeah,
tried the new mozzarella one, but the new
yeah,
mozzarella one with that like puck of mozzarella is
yeah.
amazing. Anyway, but no, a good chicken sandwich is my guilty pleasure. In terms of restaurants, there's a local one called Rusty Bucket that's amazing. They make the biggest buffalo chicken sandwich you've ever seen. It's as big as your head, and it's amazing.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I
there
was
you
gonna
go.
say Zaxby's has a sleeper chicken sandwich.
I haven't had it. Yes. So when I go south, I got to try Zaxby's. I got to try Bojangles. Some of those are coming up here to Columbus, so I can't wait
Yeah.
because I need to get them on the list. But yeah,
Bojangles is always like this, but we have a Zaxby's and Popeyes across the street, and we had the Zaxby's spicy chicken sandwich the other day, and it was phenomenal. And then we went and got I hate to admit this, but I actually just tried the Popeyes one yesterday for the first time.
so
And
good.
yeah, we were digging in our
It's
heels.
really
We're
good.
like, no, I gotta stay loyal to Chick-fil-A and everything. But
That's right.
yeah, it's good.
It's it's
Hattie
a it's
B's.
it's a different list.
Yeah, yeah,
What's that?
exactly.
Yeah,
Okay. You could try one job for a day just to see what it's like. What job would you have?
man. Goodness. That's a great question. Lead singer in a touring band.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, lead singer in the tournament.
I
Do you have the pipes for it
I
though?
can't sing, but
Okay.
no. But you just asked a question, so no.
Okay, so
I'd say lead singer in a band,
okay. What genre of music?
country
Country. All
or
right.
rap. I'm from
Okay.
Cleveland. I'd say rap,
Yeah.
like our guy Machine Gun Kelly.
Okay. And uh resource recommendation for someone. Audiobook, podcast, anything out there.
Well, I like my podcast, but
We're
that's
getting to
so
those. We're getting to those.
so all right, we'll get into those. One of the so I'll give you three books. The first one is Quiet Strength by Tony Dungy.
It's a good one.
Probably the best book I've ever read. And honestly, that's one, and 1A would be a book called The Film Doesn't Lie by Jimmy Dykes from ESPN. And 1B, they're all three so good. A book called Love Does by a guy named Bob Goff. Those three books are incredible, and I have a ton of others, but those three books really changed my life. They're incredible.
We'll put all three of those in our resource recommendations on the site. You mentioned Dean
Awesome.
Smith earlier. Have you checked out Carolina Way or Coach's Life?
Surprisingly, as much as I love him, I have not,
Oh,
but I need to. I need to.
phenomenal. I actually used a lot of Coach's Life and Carolina Way when I started teaching my first 3 years of instructing the military. I used a lot of that stuff in there. So, yeah,
Yeah.
really, really good info.
Well,
Uh,
a great military book is a book called Fearless. It's a story about Adam Brown, I believe his name is.
okay.
He was have you ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Um, it's I can't remember writer's name. It's Eric something. I'm so sorry. Anyway, incredible book. Basically, you have to read it. The guy's name is Adam Brown. He was a Navy SEAL, and because of Adam, uh, Adam led the team or was on the team that basically got the intel, which led to Osama bin Laden. Um, it was incredible. It's an incredible book. You have to read it. Honestly, there's only one book in my life I've had to walk away from,
Yeah.
shut the book, and walk away for a minute to gather myself. And that was that book. It's called Fearless. It's
That one.
amazing. Eric, yes, that's it.
Eric,
Yep.
Eric Bleem.
Eric Bleem. I want to get his name right. Yes.
Okay.
So incredible book. I promise you, like that's a powerful, powerful book, and it'll give you a ton of respect. If you don't already have it, it'll give you a major respect for our military and what they go through. Like
Especially
the guy's life
SEALs.
story is amazing, especially the SEALs. So this guy, just a quick, he got hurt in a Hummer accident, lost his
Mhm.
dominant hand. Well, he didn't lose it. He couldn't use it anymore
Yeah.
in a Hummer accident. He was in a training exercise and lost one of his he got hit in the eye with a practice bullet or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
So he loses a dominant eye and his dominant hand and still comes back to become a sniper for the
Wow.
Navy SEALs. Like this dude's story is unbelievable. But man, that guy gave a lot for our country, and he recovered from being just a goofball in high school, alcoholic, a lot of other stuff, dude. It's an incredible story. You gotta watch. You gotta read Fearless. It's amazing.
Okay. Yeah, I'll check it out. I might even check
There you
out the
go.
audio version of that.
Yes,
And
it's amazing.
final question for you. Dinner for three with three historical figures that are no longer with us. Who do you break bread with?
Obviously, the easy one is Jesus.
Yep.
You said his. Does it have to be historical?
No, no, we'll bend the rules here.
My mom.
Okay.
Oh, I'd love to have dinner with my mom again. Lost her about 11 years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, one of the best influences, the biggest influence in my life. Gosh, a third one. Phew. Um, Man, I'm trying to think of, like, there's probably a musical one. Freddie Mercury.
That'd be an interesting one.
That
Yeah.
would be some kind of dinner, wouldn't it?
Bring some entertainment. He
Jesus,
would be,
my mom, and Freddie Mercury.
yeah. Okay.
That should be the name of a book. I'll give you credit, but
Yeah.
Jesus, my mom, and Freddie Mercury.
There you go. So I would
You
definitely pick it
go.
up and at least start looking at it if that was the name of a book. So, all right.
Hey, I'm gonna make a note of that.
So you mentioned growing up in Cleveland, and talk about your parents. Like, what did your parents do growing up?
Man, my dad worked. He worked
Mm-hmm.
all the time. And my dad's an amazing man, very quiet, humble, just an incredible man. But we're talking. I was born in '70, so he was a former military guy. Um, you know, he was way beyond his time.
Yeah.
He worked for a company called Ohio Nuclear, if that
Mm.
gives you an idea, back in like the uh, late '70s and early '80s. So we had in our house, we had I remember we had a phone that had like a keyboard and a screen. Like my friends thought we were like Inspector Gadget, man. We had all the
Yeah.
toys. My dad and I built a computer by hand before computers were a thing. I mean, we're talking about like cassette tapes when that. So we were always on the cutting edge. It was incredible. He was an only child growing up, and so just an incredible guy. But he always worked. He
Yeah.
was always working, which I think I learned a lot from him in that. So my mom essentially, and again, that's the age, right, of
Mm-hmm.
when I grew up was my mom raised us. She took us to parks and taught us how to cook and taught us how to. I remember my mom took me on a date once to teach me how to walk on the street side, to open a door. She taught
Wow.
me how to treat a lady, and so I grew up with two incredible parents, and I had a blessing of doing that, and a sister that so I always say my sister was she won all the awards. She was 4.0.
Yeah.
I had a big bar, and so I tell people that, like, they would always say, "Oh, you're Tina's brother." She was 3 years older than me, and so I'd
Mm.
go, when I started school, people were like, "Oh, you're Tina's brother," and I get mad.
Yeah.
Oh, Tina's my sister. Like, you know what I mean? Like I had to carve my own way, and again, I struggled in school. I didn't do well. I didn't care about high school. My sister's out here getting 4.0s, and I'm didn't care. So that was our family, man. We had a great family. We camped. We had a lot of fun. My parents, instilled in us a work ethic and a faith, I think. But yeah, man, we were just the average American family. It was pretty cool.
I don't know why it sounds like when you were describing like what you and your dad would do, it sounds like the home from the Gremlins where they had like the orange juice maker
Seriously,
and
seriously, I'm not lying.
yeah.
We did. And then what's funny is my grandparents were, I guess nowadays, what do they call those? My grandfather would he was a collector.
Okay.
Let's just put it that way. They were
Yep.
collectors, and so our
Hoarder or
home growing
collector?
up, hoarder.
Okay.
But
So he
out of
collect vintage
respect,
stuff.
out of respect, I'll say collector. But no, they would take a lot of stuff out of the trash. And anyway, so growing up, when they passed, we ended up getting a lot of these relics, I guess you'd say. So we had one of those things like in our house, like Andy Griffin. or Griffith or what Griffin, whatever it was,
Griffith, yeah.
the dial up, right, where it had the,
Oh yeah.
you hold one end on your ear and then the other one you talk into, and we had all that stuff, man. My friends would come over and they say our house was a museum, and it wasn't because it was like this palace. We just had all this stuff. Like we had
Yeah.
the camera we had the camera with the tripod, with the
With the little
curtain that the
cloth
guy.
under it.
I'm telling you, we had that in our living room. Like people come over like, what the crap is that, man? I'm like, I don't know. Like seriously, we had so much. Just again, it was fun, man. It was just an adventure in old Bedford, Ohio.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And yeah, you 30 years in a variety of senior leadership positions.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some of the different positions that you held over that time.
So my before I graduated, I was 2 weeks away from graduating. Again, I was going to go back to Carter Lumber, like we talked about earlier. I had no plan. And this one of our professors said, "Hey, this company's coming in. They're doing interviews down at Cleveland, Ohio. Anybody want to go to this interview?" And I raised my hand just because they said Cleveland. If they would have said Cincinnati, I probably wouldn't raise my hand.
Yeah.
So I did, interviewed, got the job, went to Indianapolis. And it was a company called Best Lock at the time. So, and honestly, if you go to any restaurant, anybody listening to this, if you go to anywhere USA and Restaurant USA or retail, and you look and there's this little snowman figure 8, when you look at the lock, a lot of times it'll say the word best above it. And it was this company, and I didn't know anything about locks. I didn't care about locks, but anyway, they offered me a sales position, so I took it. Did that for about 3 or 4 years. Didn't fail, just didn't care.
Yeah.
And I was young, man. I was running up debt like crazy, and grass is always greener left. Anyway, fast forward, we moved to Columbus, and they called me years later and said, "Hey, we're expanding our territory. Would you want to come back?" I'm like, yeah, why not? I was kind of in a place in life to do that. Now I had debt. I had a wife and a child on the way, and a mortgage and all these things. So I'm like, yeah, I need to get back into something where I can make more money. That company got bought by Stanley, the tool company.
Yep.
Not about, gosh, I don't know, 6 months to a year after I started back with them, and yeah, before you knew it, I had success. In sales, and they started this new division. They had an idea. It was drawn up on a napkin in a bar by the CEO, and they said, "We want to try this." So they did interviews, and I went from sales to the ivory tower in one jump, and I missed all the ladder steps in between. And that's not a brag. I don't know how I got there, but somehow I did, and it was amazing. And I had a great run, and I got to be among senior leadership, and then from there I got to work in a variety of roles. The latest one prior to doing what I'm doing now is working for the great Bo Jackson. So, man, it's been fun. It's been a ride. It was amazing. Bo's an amazing guy. It was one of his businesses, so I should put an asterisk next to that. But I got to spend about a half dozen times with Bo. He's an amazing guy.
Wow. Yeah, he's right up the road to Auburn.
Very private guy, and I appreciate that about him. Nothing bad to say about Bo whatsoever, man. It was a great opportunity, and surreal to be able to work for him.
So you've got security, you've got family,
all over the place.
You got a lot of things going for you, and then you decide to walk away from it.
Right.
Something that a lot of listeners out there are like, nope, I would be content. I'd ride that out, get my gold watch, and call it a day. But what was it about you that made you say, you know what, I've got to follow this passion that I have, possibly my purpose? What was it about you?
Great question. A lot of great questions, man. You're good at this. I would say,
I appreciate it.
I would say, I started the podcast during the pandemic. Again, another long story. I started during the podcast the pandemic because I was bored. I had nothing else to do. So
Why you're on here?
Yeah, it's like I was bored. I was literally bored. They're like, all right, well, I don't even listen to podcasts. I don't know what they're supposed to sound like. I don't know what they're supposed to be like. I just know, I'm going to do that. So, and the world was on fire. And so I had some friends with the Columbus Destroyers and arena
Mm,
football team.
yeah.
And it was, literally the world was on fire, and there was a lot of racial tension and things. And so I said, I reached out to a few of them. I said, guys, let's just get on a Zoom and let's just talk about how we can be better,
Yeah.
and we'll record it and I'll just put it out there. But like my intent was like, let's stop arguing with each other and let's just try to be better. So that was episode 1, the Columbus Destroyers. It was 2 players and the head coach, and they now folded, but those guys are still good friends of mine. And the thing just kept growing, and my passion for it kept growing. And people started saying, man, you're kind of good at that. Like, I really like it. Hey, I'm enjoying it. You hear that enough and you're like, well, maybe there's something here. And in the same time, my interest in my current position was growing. And you know I think I heard a quote after I had left that position that said, it's time to push away from the table when respect is no longer being served.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just leave
Well,
it
like
at that.
that.
I'll just leave it at that. And so, you do need to know when to push away from the table when respect is no longer being served. Without saying anything negative, I'll just leave it at that. And so I did actually went to work for another friend, more of an advisory role. And after about 6 months, in the meantime, the podcast is growing, opportunities are growing. And, finally he and I went for a walk one day. He's like, hey man, you got time for a walk? I'm like, yeah, let's go for a walk. So we went, and as we were walking and talking, he's like, dude, your passion's not here, man. And it wasn't me. Like, it was a good friend. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, I think you got bigger things, and they were still trying to recover from the pandemic in terms of staffing and costs and things. So we just agreed. We said, you know what, man, let's just call it what it is. Let's go. We're good. Came home now. I had to tell my wife.
Yeah.
So it was easy for me because I'm a dreamer. I'm a jump out of the plane guy. But yeah, so I just said, you know what, we're going to be okay. We're going to do this. And so here we are, a year and a half. I tell our staff all the time, we may be open 5 more minutes or 5 years. I don't know. But what I know is, man, we love our job. I've got a great team, and I love what I get to do every day. I don't know how long it'll last, but I love what I get to do. And we're a year and a half in, and things are going pretty well. So,
How cool is that to look back at? You were talking about growing up, school wasn't really your thing.
yeah.
You were always the younger brother, and you never really felt like you were just thriving. And now you have people tell you, like, wow, you're good at this. This is something
Yeah.
you're great at. How does that feel?
It's great. As I told you before we recorded, man, I don't like to be interviewed. I'm not a guy that I don't live for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't live for that. I think I live with Unscripted, man. What we wanted to do was, and especially as a group, it's never been about me. It's about providing a platform for others.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally what we do. So our business, we've got a number of people, clients that my whole job is, we joke around, it's very much Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Like, even and I'll even tell you that the admin that I had at my previous job left with me. Very much like Jerry Maguire. Now
Yeah.
it stops there, and I make sure, please, people, everybody understand, it stops there. There's not the rom-com side of it.
Yep.
She just believed in the vision too, and she's amazing, and she's our executive director. But yeah, so I've kind of lived this Jerry Maguire life where really it's about the Quan, man. It's about all of our clients. I love seeing them do successful. I'm not a guy that wants. I'm not into that. I've
Yeah.
never have been. But it's just fun, man. I love my job. I love seeing other people be successful and helping them be successful.
Yeah, and you're helping them be successful with a lot of incredible podcasts that you got going on here, which is what we're going to talk about now. So you mentioned you started the Unscripted Collective in 2021, and basically start taking us through your different podcasts that you got. You got some incredible co-hosts, some incredible episodes you've recorded. Yeah, just catch our listeners up.
Yeah, so it started with Unscripted,
Yep.
and literally that was born out of the very first episode. Again, it wasn't planned; it wasn't an idea. But while we were talking, at some point, I said something like, "Guys, we're just unscripted here." So, and afterwards I was like, I kind of like that. That's kind of cool. So I ran with Unscripted. And then we started a business called the Unscripted Collective, which some people have a hard time differentiating. There's a podcast, and then we have an entire business. And so
Hmm.
the entire business is websites. We help other people start podcasts. We help other people host or edit, or there's a menu of options that we can do for them. We promote speakers, artists, athletes. We've gotten into some NIL stuff. So we're kind of all over the place, but there is a plan behind it all. And yeah, so podcast wise, there's mine. That was kind of the initial one. And then some other people approached us, had because of my podcast. And I tell our team all the time, my podcast has been the little engine that drives this thing.
Hmm.
And so because of like the interview with you today, we're friends now, man. I like, that's how I look at it. And so when I interview somebody, I've had the opportunity to interview some amazing people,
Yeah.
which has led to some amazing opportunities. And so a guy like Gary Miracle, one of my best friends now, literally one of my probably most important people in my life. And I met him on a podcast because he replied to an email.
Isn't
Like,
it
you know how that
crazy?
is. You know how that is, right? As a
Yeah.
podcaster. And so because of Gary and our friendship and our relationship, we've helped him with his website. He's launched his podcast, which he's gotten very busy. And so it's hasn't grown as much, but that's one. We have multiple podcasts that we've started where people came to us. We have another friend locally that she had this dream. She's just torn apart by how, the school shootings and things like that. So she's been working and she's created this thing called the Spark Shield. And it's amazing. It's a great little product. It's incredible. But she's trying to get that going. And yeah, anyway, so she started a podcast where she's interviewing because of that, she's had the opportunity to meet parents who've lost children in shootings.
Mm.
And so she's done some podcasts. We have another one that does KMO movement. She just changed her name to the Arena, but Kelsey's incredible. Her podcast is amazing. She's changing lives through physical and mental training. Just she's awesome.
Yeah.
And then I struck up one with the local high school. So we do a couple of local coaches shows. We do a high school basketball and football and wrestling. I don't
Yeah.
I don't actually do the wrestling one. There's another guy that does it. We just host it and edit it. And then obviously, Mark Price is the most recent and most incredible one I've done. I mean, he was my hero growing up. And so
Yeah.
it's,
Cleveland.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy to be a part of the Mark Price podcast and have him trust us to handle it. That's been awesome.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, how cool is that to sit there is to reflect back and think as a kid that you're co-hosting a podcast with Mark Price.
It's surreal.
Yeah.
My wife and I went to Hawaii this summer on our 25th anniversary, and we're sitting on the beach, and literally there was a back-to-back text, and one was Gary Miracle, and one was Mark Price. And I took my phone and I showed it to her, and I said, "Never let me forget. Like, don't ever let me
Yeah.
forget how blessed and incredible it is that these last two texts are from these two guys. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. And I don't ever take it for granted, man. I don't. It's surreal every single time.
Yeah. We just got back from a trip to Atlanta this past week. Mark Price, speaking of Mark Price, and saw his banners and stuff hanging up all over the Thriller Dome. But we had actually connected with someone from the podcast, like you were talking about these connections. Yeah. And my daughter and I did. Meeting this person, it was Jamie Andrews who was on here, and meeting her in person, one of the most fun 2 hours I've had in quite some time. But walking away from it, I was like, this, like you said, just all started from being bored, tired of those board games and binge watching stuff on Netflix. And it's like, let's do something. And now you, like you said, you have all these relationships and friendships, and it's crazy. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So yeah,
1,000%.
Yeah. And so all these amazing podcasts, and Yes, we will have a link to all of these podcasts in the
Thank
episode
you.
description. So it is going to be flooded with podcasts. But I think the most more than anything about what you're doing with your podcast with Mark Price and all the others is how do you balance that personal and professional life?
Well, they become the same. I
Yeah.
mean, and so when we jumped out of the plane, I went from, and again, one of my employers wasn't very happy about the podcast, actually to the point where they called me and questioned my intent and why I was doing the podcast. Again, you gotta push away from the table when respect is no longer being served.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, if you feel threatened by that, then why don't we use it for our business?
Hmm.
We're not a very big business anyway. That's another rant. But that being said, man, you know, they do become two in one. So my family wears the merch. I mean, they
Oh,
tell their
nice.
friends, and a funny story, to that point. My daughter goes to Grace College in Indiana, and uh, somebody I've interviewed twice is Leah Omiko. She's a three-time softball gold medal winning player, and she's amazing.
I'm
And
actually about to interview her.
she's amazing. Tell her I said hi.
2 weeks. Will do. Yeah.
Lovely. She's amazing. Seriously, she's awesome. She's a good friend. And so she's going to show up at Grace. And she was supposed to go last year, and something happened. I think there was weather or something that canceled her speaking
Okay.
engagement at Grace. Anyway, so my daughter called me last week and she said, "Hey," or she sent me a text. She said, "Hey, Leah's coming back." I'm like, "Awesome. I can't wait." So I messaged
Yeah.
Leah, said, "Hey, you guys got to connect, whatever." And so I was talking to my daughter last Friday, I think it was, and she said, she was sitting with her boyfriend in chapel, and they were announcing Leah's, Miko's coming, and she said, she said he looked at her and he was like, "Man, that's awesome. This is going to be really cool. I can't wait to hear from this lady." She's like, "My dad interviewed him, right?" Or interviewed her, right? So anyway, it's a family affair. Like the kids get excited about it. I love that they get excited when I get excited about who I'm going to
Yeah.
interview. And anyway, a funny story because she's like, "Well, my dad like interviewed her, right?" Like, she's all like cocky about it. But no, it's pretty cool. Leah's amazing. I hope you're going to enjoy it. She's fantastic. I'm such a fan of Leah Migo.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to do that. And yeah, I totally agree with what you said. You got to make it. You got to bring the family into it. And
Absolutely.
my wife is finishing up her degree in psychology, and a lot of times I'll show her like, "Hey, this is who I'm talking to. What questions would you ask?" And it was funny because she really helped me with. There was an episode where some of their trauma was way over my head, and I had her. Yeah, I'm like, what would you ask this person? What is something you would throw at them? And two of the questions that she asked, the guy was like, "Wow, man, this is probably the best question I've ever been asked. Oh my god!"
Wow.
And then he asked
Wow.
another one. So when I finished, I went and grabbed her, and I was like, "You've got to. I'm gonna go back and try to find it. It took forever, but uh, look at this." And she's like, "Good, I needed that because she had just had one of her psych professors tell her like, you think too deep about things at times." But to hear that, she was like, "That was really motivating." So yeah, she definitely helps me out as well. But I always like to ask that because it can sometimes if the family's not all on board, man, and that's with
Yeah.
anything, not just
Right.
podcasting,
Right. Right.
can really
Right.
pull a family apart. But
My
yeah.
number one listener is my wife. She'll go on her walks and runs and go to Planet
Oh,
Fitness or
nice.
whatever, and she'll say, "Is there any new episodes up?" And she'll let me know. Like,
You
you
just
got
got to
that one
watch what
right.
you say them.
Yeah, right, right. Seriously. She'll let me know. She'll let me know if I did well or if it wasn't a good one. But most of the time, she's well, I mean, she's always supportive.
Yeah.
But luckily for most of them, she's like, "That one was really good," or I really like what they said. So yeah, she's my number one listener.
That is awesome. That is
Yeah.
awesome. And what do you think is if you were to define your purpose in one word, what would you say?
Uh, I don't want this to come across wrong. Passion. Um, I don't know why. And we do these studies and different things and different jobs I've been in. And the word I always get back is passionate. Oh, he's passionate. He's passionate. He's passionate. So I guess there's something to that. I don't know what that means. Like, I don't know what that means, but I guess I'm just passionate for others, for what we do. Um, for my life, my message, man, I've lost in the last 6 months, I've lost like 3 friends, just one
Mm.
last week. Um, and
Sorry to hear
so
that.
thank you. I guess I'm just very aware of our time here and what limited time we have. And so I guess others would probably say passionate. I would say impact,
Yeah.
legacy, and not legacy in terms of trophies on a wall. I don't want that, man. I guess I just want to know that my time here meant something to somebody,
Yeah.
uh, especially my family. If I missed there, then I missed everywhere else. But um, yeah, man, I think I don't know. Our time's limited, so I guess I want to leave a legacy, not for trophies and you know accolades, but that my time here meant something.
Yeah, and speaking of leaving a legacy, the one thing that I really wanted to unpack that really stood out to me about your story that I think could really help our listeners out there is you grew up, or I'm assuming for majority of your life, dyslexic is something that you suffered with, and dyslexia, is that the proper term for it?
Correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what I really saw that stood out to me is you went from struggling with that for your life, most of your life, up to being a staff writer for Keeping It Hill, which, by the way, my go-to Tar Heel site. I told you that, I think,
That's
on
awesome.
Twitter.
That's awesome.
My go-to there. And then you're also working on a book.
Right.
I mean, you talk about overcoming some odds that, especially as a kid, you hear that and you're like, I'm not going to be able to do anything. That childhood, we call it childhood trauma, but I remember as in fourth grade, I had reading comprehension, and I was told by my teacher that this was a different time, folks.
Right.
My teacher told me I was stupid, and told my mom I was stupid because you remember the California aptitude test or whatever.
Right. Right.
I bombed that thing,
Yeah.
and they were like, he's well below his peers. So for me, anytime I would hear you're dumb, oh my gosh, so stupid, it would really just feed in more and more and more. But how did you take a card that was dealt to you like that and just completely rip it up and say, you know what? No, I'm gonna overcome this.
Um, well, yeah, and I want to preference it because everything's relative, right? Like when I
Hmm.
say, when you say it was a tough growing up, man, tough's it's relative.
Hmm.
I struggled in school was the bottom line, and I wasn't good in school because I was dyslexic, and now though in those days it didn't have a name. You were good, you were good in school or you weren't.
Yeah.
You didn't have ADHD. You didn't have OCD. You didn't have dyslexia. You didn't have these things now that we can identify and help kids. My wife's a teacher. My daughter is dyslexic, and she
Mm.
has because of that she's given extra time on tests and things. So
Yeah.
we didn't define those things when we were growing up. I mean, when I was growing up, you didn't define those things. And so I'll tell you a story. I was driving Friday night. I was going to meet my son, and uh, I had just the radio on, and Sean Hannity was on, and he was interviewing Stephen A. Smith. And I don't even know if I'm a Stephen A. Smith fan, but he was telling the story. Stephen A. Smith has a brand new book out, free plug for his book, but he's got this book, and he was talking about how he failed third grade. I hope I'm going to get this right. He failed third grade. He took summer school to be able to pass third grade. He passed third grade, went into fourth grade, and failed again. So he got held back like twice. And what Sean Hannity was talking to him about, and Stephen A. Smith told this story where he went home and he overheard his parents talking, and his dad said he's dumb. Like, it's just what it is. He's
Mm.
dumb. Like, he's going to be that way the rest of his life. And at some point, a teacher called him and his mom in, and the teacher told his mom, he's not dumb. He's actually brilliant. He's actually brilliant. You just have to find what he's passionate about and
Mm.
watch him take off. And I swear to you, that happened to me in third grade. I was in third grade. I took one of those tests. It might have been the one you're talking about. I don't know. But
Yeah.
I was failing in everything. And my mom and I went back to this teacher, Mr. Kramer, shout out Mr. Kramer, wherever he is. And he said the same thing essentially. We left and I was like crying. I'm an empath, so I cry about everything. And so I'm crying. I think I'm in trouble. And I remember my mom said, look, you know what he said? He said, you're not stupid, you're brilliant. But I had to find places I could be brilliant in. And I'm not even saying I'm good at it now. I've just learned to accept it. You know, like my English is terrible, man. I don't know how I got through school.
Thank
I don't
God
know
for
how I got
Grammarly.
through. Thank God for Grammarly. It's the greatest tool ever. But here's what I did with Grammarly is I was just telling my wife, when I use that, I don't just click, 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 click. I click and watch what can I learn?
Yes.
Why did I get that wrong?
And then
Why
your
didn't I
score
have
gets
a comma in
better.
the right place? Right. Why
Yeah.
didn't I have that comma in the right place? Why didn't I um whatever it is? Like I try to learn from that. And now I'm passionate about learning. I just didn't care in high
Yeah.
school. I didn't care. I had to care a little more in college because I had to get through it and we were paying for it. But
Yeah.
I just didn't care. And so anyway, man, I appreciate the kind words, but I just think I found things I'm passionate about. And when you're passionate about it, as someone who is dyslexic, you're passionate about it, man. There's no stopping you. Actually, people are like, whoa, whoa, slow down. I mean, I say I'm all gas, no brakes. A lot of the things I do because I am all gas, no brakes. And people have to, my wife has to constantly say, slow down a little bit, like think it through. Cause otherwise I'm just boom, 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 I go.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for saying that. But yeah, that's what I learned. And I didn't overcome a lot. I mean, there's people that have overcome ridiculous circumstances growing up. I had a
Right.
great
Right.
home. I had great parents. So I hate to make it sound like I had a bad childhood or a crazy upbringing. I didn't. I just didn't care. And
Hmm.
I didn't care because it wasn't identified that, hey, I mean, again, I guess I just embraced being stupid. Like I just
Yeah.
embraced it. Like, well, I was always the guy that said, well, I'm not good. I'm not a good test taker because I wasn't. I just wasn't good at tests. I could study all night and fail that thing miserably because I couldn't comprehend. I didn't comprehend well. But
Hmm.
anyway, I'm not here to make excuses. I just, uh, I don't know. I guess I look at my life and that's why I realize I'm blessed. I was breech with a umbilical cord around my neck day one. Like I wasn't even supposed to make it through birth.
Wow.
And man, I've had such an incredible life. And that's, so you ask about the books. That's what it's about. Actually, I'm gonna try to release the first one very soon, and that's just about my dad, my mom, my sister, my wife, and our three kids. That's just going to be their stories, my interaction with them. And then what the funny part is, I'm having a really hard time writing the second half, and that's me. But man, I threw out the first pitch on opening day at Jacobs Field when it was called that. Um, I have lived a life that would blow your mind,
Wow.
and necessary. And that's not to brag. I don't know how this happened, but here we are, and it's been awesome. And I just want
Yeah.
to encourage other people to do that too. Just live unscripted, man. Don't script your life. Like just take every opportunity, embrace it, enjoy it, step through the doors when they're open and go. Like anyway, yeah.
And that second book, by the way, we've already titled that Jesus Mom and Freddie Mercury. So
That's right.
that's that's the
Love
second
that
book
so
coming.
much. I love
So
that so much.
before we get to the final question I got for you, got some Carolina rapid fire questions
All
to
right,
throw
let's
at you
go.
here.
Those are my favorite.
Best Tar Heel game you've ever seen?
Duke last year. I mean, you physically or on TV?
TV.
TV, Duke last year. We didn't sit down the entire game.
Yeah,
My
Final
son
Four.
came home from college. My son actually missed a dance with his girlfriend. Like he skipped the big like college prom
Oh yeah,
thing
yeah.
to come home to watch that game with another dad and his son. And we did not sit. I swear to you, we did not sit for 3 hours straight. We just stood there. It was amazing.
Oh yeah. It's nothing like anything I've ever seen. National championship games, any of that stuff. When Carolina beat Duke, Coach K's last game
Amazing.
in Durham, I was like, this is the best feeling ever as a Tar Heel. And I'm like, I wonder what Duke will ever do to get this back. And then when the
Yeah.
brackets kept getting shorter and shorter, and I'm like,
I hated it. I
oh my
hated it.
gosh. I was like,
Like, don't do this.
I was
Don't
like,
do
come on,
this.
Texas Tech, help us out.
Seriously,
And
don't do this.
wow, Gonzaga laid an egg. And then
Yeah.
St. Peter's, the only thing in between.
Yeah.
And then when that Final Four game happened, I was like, Oh,
Yeah, I'm
this is the
dead. I
universe
didn't want it. I didn't want it.
evening out. But yeah, so when that happened and then when that game ended, so I have a couple of Duke friends, and I'm not that fan that will brag to any.
Yeah,
When I was a kid, oh, I was obnoxious. I was so obnoxious.
yeah.
But now it just doesn't, it's not something I feel like doing. But for those two, really tight Duke friends, sent them a message like as the game was winding down, and I was like, "Hey, how's everything going?" And
Seriously, checking in.
yeah, I heard nothing for like
Yeah,
weeks, and then they were finally
yeah,
like, I'm over it now." Or they tried to say like, "Hi, y'all lost to Kansas," but
yeah.
come
Didn't
on,
even
that
care.
was house money. That
Didn't
was,
even care. I swear to you, I still don't even remember the final score. And I look back and I'm like, my gosh, we were a minute away from another banner.
so I
We
went,
were we were a minute and a twisted ankle away from another banner.
yeah,
That's
and a faulty
insane.
floorboard. So
That's insane.
yeah, I went to that game with my daughter, and driving there,
Wow.
we were like, because it's 4 hours from here, and driving to it, we're like, I don't even care if we win this game. I'm just, how cool to say we're going to the national championship game. And when we
Didn't care.
lost, we walked out, and I was like, the only
Oh
difference
well.
is I'm not walking out with a t-shirt. Um,
Right. Right.
so I mean, it was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun.
It was amazing. And like I said, I didn't sit the entire game with Duke. I sat the entire game with Kansas. Like
Yeah.
literally, I just sat there in my lazy boy, and my wife's. And normally, I'm like nervous that you guys might see. So you go back to the last one with that they won before that, and I'm pacing. I had a chair. My daughter had this like leopard skin chair or something, and it was zebra. It's zebra,
Was
and
it
it was one of those.
17 or the
Yes.
Duke
Yeah.
game?
Well, it was prior to even that. Yeah. So it was pretty much every year during the tournament. We set up all these TVs like B dubs in our living room.
Oh
We were
yeah.
a little obsessed with it. But anyway, she had this chair, and it was a little kid's chair, but it has this zebra print. And whenever I would sit in that chair, they won. And so I sat in that chair. So anyway, we have this picture of me sitting in the chair, and I had a baseball, and I'm just flipping the baseball the whole time because I'm so nervous. Kansas, I just sat there like, yeah, it's good. Oh man, bummer. We
Yeah.
lost. Oh well. And I had this conversation with because I live in Ohio, so I live in Columbus, and the Ohio State Michigan thing was starting to look like it may go there, and I'm like,
Yeah.
guys, you don't want that. I'm telling you, you don't want that
No.
because to me the rivalry changes. I don't want to say I don't watch Duke. Sure, I cheer when they lose now, but don't really care. And I don't know if I was actually going to write something for keeping it heel. I don't know if that's a Coach K thing because I just despise the man, or if it's a rivalry thing and it's over because it's not over. It'll never be over. But like,
It was the end
man,
of an era.
dude, that's the peak. Like, and the
Yeah.
way it came down and the way it ended, I don't want to say I don't care about Duke anymore. I just like,
The
I'm not as obsessive about hating them as I was prior to the
right.
Final Four.
That, I was just talking to my daughter about it. It's not that the luster is gone from Duke. When you watch Duke, you're not watching Duke basketball.
Not now, especially no. Not
No,
without K. I mean, not without K roaming the sidelines and all the nonsense.
it
But
was his presence, and then
yeah,
there was this like intensity on the court that's just not there right now. And that to me, that's the biggest thing. You watch a Duke game, and it's like, you know, Cameron's not intimidating right now.
no, and I like Shire. I hated Shire as a player. I
I
mean, did
love
you
him
always
right
hate him?
now.
Yeah, I do too. I honestly think he's a good coach. I just
Yeah,
like that he's not anti K. He's just not K. I mean, K was just such a villain.
yeah.
I guess that's the thing is this rivalry is going to miss villains now because you got two of the nicest guys in the world
Coaching both
on
teams.
on coaching both teams. So it'll be back. It'll be back. It'll take some time so it'll be very fun this year to watch those games and what the play. I mean, it's all still there.
Yeah.
I don't live in Carolina, so I don't know and maybe I'm just completely coming from it from the outside, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. But love
Hopefully,
that
not
game. The
playing in the
best
Final
game
Four of
ever.
the NIT this year.
Right.
Uh,
No, they'll be fine. They'll be fine.
well, next question for you: most underrated Tar Heel of all time.
I'm going to say Kendall Marshall.
Yeah,
Just because and that's the first name that comes to mind. There's so many, a lot of guys underrated, but I'm gonna say Kendall Marshall just because I think he was behind Henson, and he was on a great team. And again, if he doesn't break his wrist, they're hanging another banner because Kentucky doesn't win it that year.
Damn
But
Creighton.
right, I hate Creighton. But no, I would say Marshall because his jersey's not in the rafters because of the specifics of how that has to happen.
Yep.
And he didn't get to win a championship. But look, at the end of the day, Marcus Page, who, if you were looking at it, you go, oh, Marcus Page was better or Joel Berry was better. But and those guys didn't make the show. Kendall was in the NBA for a little while at least,
Yeah.
and he had a nice little run with the Lakers, the purest point guard I've ever seen. And Mark Price would hate me for saying that, but I would say it's Kendall Marshall. I just think, and a lot of people respect him. I just think the guy was unbelievable. He was one of my favorite players ever to watch play.
Yeah.
The easy answer is Hansborough, but the guy's got accolades forever. But
I think Ed Cota. Ed Cota's not a lot of target. If you're outside of Chapel Hill, you may forget about Ed Cota.
Yeah, there's a ton of them.
Yeah.
Derek Phelps. Gosh, there's been a lot of guys come through there, but one of my favorites is Kendall Marshall. I just loved watching him play. I loved his game.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, that the what if.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's follow that up. Best team not to win a title.
Probably that one. Either that one or the Jameson, Carter,
98.
Yeah.
The 6-man rotation team of 98.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okalaja, those guys.
Yeah. How you don't win with, Twan and
Shaman.
Vinsanity, Shaman. I mean, that team was loaded.
Yeah.
You just never know. But that when you look back, you see clips of that team, and you're like, how did this team not win? I mean, they've had a lot of really, really great teams. The Barnes,
watching that Utah game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, what just happened? But Barnes, Henson, Zeller, K Butter, Reggie Bullock. I mean, like, how did that team not win? And then, then they had their, violations without violations years and got kind of dark there for a while. But that's a team that should have hung a banner. And honestly, the Villanova game, that's just heartbreaking. Like the fact that Marcus Page isn't a champion is just absolutely heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
That game was really hard to watch, especially when Page hit that shot, you're like, we're winning this.
Oh yeah, it's over.
We're winning this. It's going to overtime and we're winning this because they had momentum, everything, and then just a heartbreaking shot, and shout out Villanova for a great play.
I think Hicks missed a screen or something on that one, and
Bryce was right there. It was just heartbreaking when you watch it back. I still can't watch it because I was devastated. That was a heartbreaking loss.
On paper, if you look at, I think it was 84, where they had Jordan, Perkins, Brad Doherty, Cavalier.
Yep. Matt Doherty. Yep. All of them.
Such a stacked team. Kenny Smith, I think, was on that team. Yeah.
Yep.
Kenny Smith. I think he broke his wrist that year, but
he did. And that was the Kendall Marshall, just like it. Same thing.
So he broke his wrist against LSU and grew up not liking LSU. And I interviewed Coach Dale Brown. And
oh wow,
when we were off the air, I asked him about that game. I said, that game sent shockwaves through my household for years because that altered the season for Carolina. He swears it was clean play. But yeah, good guy though. I like him. If there's one class at Carolina where entering the NBA draft early is not an option. What class would you keep for that next year?
Man, these are great questions. That's a really good one because Carolina hasn't gotten the one and done game.
Yeah.
Right? So that's a tough question because a lot of them do stay around because the culture and the guys that were drafted.
I go Wallace Stackhouse. Give him that 1 year with Jamison Carter.
Right. Right. And I'd say, Kobe White was a guy that I could list I guess I could list individual players versus classes. Kobe White's a guy that I would have loved to have seen stay. Tony Bradley should have stayed.
White would have played with Anthony, his name, right? Yeah, he would have.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine that backcourt? So it's not like Roy wasn't recruiting. Damon Shepard or Sharp.
Yep.
doesn't he?
Sharp only played, I think, 1 year.
He only played a year, right? That guy would have been a beast. Kessler, like Kessler transferring. I mean, Kessler could have been a phenomenal player in that system. Walker Kessler. That maybe that might be the one.
Yeah.
Like both those guys leaving was devastating. I think back to the Weir twins. I didn't like them. They weren't exceptional, but man, when that year, I don't
Drew,
remember.
all
I
that.
lost my years now. Yeah, I mean Larry Duchu leaving, and then the Weir twins leaving, and there was just some cultural issues
UCLA,
there. But
UNC 2.0.
yeah, that was a devastating time because Roy had two bigs and a
Mm-hmm.
point guard. Man, that's hard to rebuild from on the fly. He didn't expect those guys to leave, so
Yeah.
they didn't leave for the NBA. They transferred. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I'd love to have seen what Kobe White could have done if he'd stayed just a little bit longer. I don't know that Cole Anthony was a fit. I like Cole. I think he's a great player. I don't think he was ever a fit. Plus,
No.
he wasn't healthy. He was hurt. He was
Yep.
hurt.
Final
But
one. You could put one jersey in the rafter that's not currently up there. What jersey goes?
again, tough question. I'd say K Butter, just because I
Yeah.
liked him so much. Kendall Marshall. I mean, I'd love to see his jersey up there.
Yeah.
Paige didn't get one either, did he? Did Paige get one up
Paige
there?
got one.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I think him and Bryce
Marshall.
got theirs up at the same time.
Yeah, I'd say Kendall Marshall, man. I just recently, and
Yeah.
you could probably go back. There's probably a lot more over the years. But man, I just was such a fan. Kendall Marshall was just such an extension of Roy on the floor. And I guess I'm a point guard at heart. I one of the best, man. He was so good in that system. It breaks my heart he didn't get his jersey up there.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely, I mean, you talk about one of the best all around players they've had up there. He's up there on that list. I would actually say for me, I don't know what in the world he's doing now, but Kennedy Meeks for his play in that tournament. I mean, he didn't get those rebounds against Oregon. You don't win a 2017 national championship.
How's he not up there? Did he not qualify, or they just didn't do it yet?
I don't think he meet the first team All American, most outstanding player.
Yeah, and the work that kid did on his body.
Yeah, it's like Sean May.
He was
kind of resembled his journey.
Yeah, and the way that he just took care of it, his body, and the way he took, just changed and morphed from being soft. I mean, I just said that this week remember when they said Bakeout was soft? That's kind of funny to laugh about now.
First 2 years, yeah.
Right. And look at that kid now. He's playing on a sprained ankle. He probably has no business playing on, but
he's got all that NIL money and has every right to be sitting out, and he's still out there. It's his love for the university.
Yeah, that's the leader. That's the leader. So, yeah.
Well, final question for you. 50 years from now, when your name is mentioned, what do you want your legacy to be?
That I love my family and my wife.
I like that.
And that I hopefully made somebody's life better.
There we go. That's a perfect way to end this. Well, I can't thank you enough for taking time to do this. One more time, tell our listeners, where can they find all your podcasts at?
Easiest thing to do is go to myunscripted.com. Myunscripted.com. And that's our business. You'll find I write, so you'll find some blog posts there. You'll find the Unscripted podcast there, latest episodes, most popular episodes. You'll find Mark Price's podcast there. Highly recommend that one. That's a lot of fun. It's a really good one. And then, the other ones are all on Apple, Spotify, Pandora. You can find them. There's a number of them. And you can find on that website, you can find our work, which talks about the different, things that we do, websites, podcasts that we have, things like that. But yeah, myunscripted.com is kind of that hub.
Sweet. What final comments you got for our listeners?
Man, thank you. I told you I don't like to be interviewed. It's the weirdest thing, and that's not because I'm a diva or whatever. I'm not comfortable in the seat. I don't like when
you did good at it. You did really good at it.
Well, we're gonna have to flip the script, so you're gonna have to come on mine now. So
whenever.
All right, well, let's do it. We'll do that offline. We'll plan that out. But no, man, thanks. This is an honor. It's an honor to have people ask questions about me. I don't think most people would care, but about the story. So thank you for letting me take a lot of your time today.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. Very inspiring story. I appreciate it. I mean, definitely I can relate to a lot of what you expressed here during your story. So I can't thank you enough. Folks, if you like what you're listening to, head over, leave us a review. Also, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, comment all of our places that we are located on all the podcast platforms and our YouTube channel. See you next week with the Rebound series. We tip that off here on the Shadows Podcast.